Okay, if you want to start off by just giving me your full name.
My name is Sile Dillon O'Callaghan O'Leary.
Very good. And where do you fit in the family, Sheila?
I'm number 2. I'm the oldest girl.
The oldest girl.
Second in the family,
Okay,
next to David.
right. Now, did you want to, if you could give me just a little bit on what you know about on your parents' side, just tracing back the family tree as much as you'd be aware of.
Well, the only thing I know, of course, that my father came from Ballyconry, which is near Ballybunion,
Okay,
and there were 5 boys, no girl, and both their parents were teachers, and all 5 boys were teachers.
okay, interesting.
That's about as much as I know about them, nothing else.
Right. And then on your mother's
My
side?
mother's side, she was the second oldest. There was, how many girls there? 2 girls, I think, 2 girls and 3 boys. And other than that, I don't, well, I know just based on an email I received recently that they lived in Dunmanway. My mother was 2 months when she lived in Dunmanway.
Where's that?
That's in West Cork.
Yeah.
And then they moved to Castle Townsend, which is kind of on the water, I think. And I don't know when they came to Ballydesmond, but I do understand that how my grandmother and grandfather met, because my grandfather was from Galway.
Okay.
And of course my grandmother was from Ballydesmond. And my grandfather was stationed there. That's how they met. This is all information I heard a few days ago from my first cousin, John Fitzgerald. And in those days, if you married a local person, you had to move. So that's probably how they went to Dunmanway. How long they were there, I have no idea. That's about as much as I know.
Okay.
Oh, the other thing I do know was, of course, he was, I think he was police for the British or something like that, which was like supposedly a really bad thing in those days.
That'd be the
RIC, yeah, the Royal Irish Constabulary.
Yeah.
Don't know anything about it, I have no idea, it wasn't supposed to be a good thing, but a job is a job, you do what you have to do.
So that was on your mother's side?
Yes, would be my grandfather. My grandfather.
Your grandfather, sorry.
My mother's father.
Yeah, okay. And is there anything else then related to that? I mean, that you're aware of? So your parents came to live in Ballydesmond, but their parents weren't there. Is that right?
No, my grandmother was from there, but my grandfather was from Galway.
Okay. Grandmother's from Ballydesmond. Sorry,
Yes,
now I'm piecing it together myself.
That's all right.
Okay. And then your parents themselves, I mean, is there anything you want to say
Well,
about?
my father, from what I understand, he went to school, I don't know if he went to the same school my mother did or somebody else in the village. And when he got his first job, it was near Ballydesmond. So he didn't know anyone, he didn't know any place to stay, so he stayed at my grandmother's house. And that's how he met my mother.
Okay.
That's how they met.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And how did he end up staying in their house?
Because he didn't know anyone, and she must have gone to, she went to the same school. I don't know how he ended up staying there.
Okay.
Debbie would be able to fill in all of that.
He'll fill in all the gaps, will he?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, do you want to talk then just a little bit about growing up, I guess from your parents' perspective and any thoughts you wanted to share about your parents?
I don't remember anything unusual about growing up. I guess we were well off, but we didn't know we were well off. And let's see, my mother. Well, of course, when we were young, we always said live in hell when we were young. So we never really did anything. Like when we'd come home from school, we'd have to go upstairs and take our clothes off and change into whatever it is we would play outside. And then we could stay outside until it was dark.
Yeah.
But I grew up really with Bernie and Patch.
Right.
Because Debbie was 4 years older than me. And I told this to Bernie recently. I remember my mother talking about how myself and Bernie were fighting at the top of the stairs about something. And we fell down the stairs and she grabbed him and let me go to the bottom. Because of course I was a bit older. What else? I remember when my brother died. He was only a couple of months. And I don't know what year that was. Again, Debbie is the historian, he would know. But we were very young, I know.
Where was he in the family?
His name was John Dillon. He would have been in between Patch and Brendan. And he was just a couple of months when he died.
And what did he die of?
I think it was the crib death or whatever they call it.
Cot death.
They didn't really know. They didn't
Okay.
really know. At least we were never, I'm just guessing that, I don't really know. But I remember he was laid out in a carriage, as we call it, or you call it as a pram or whatever, right inside the front door. He was there, and there was flowers all around him. And myself and Bernie and Patch were sent down to my grandmother's in the village. And when we came back, we were told he was gone to heaven. That's all I remember about that. But I remember it very clearly. Now, I don't know if Bernie and Patch have a memory of that or not, because I would have been like...
What age would you have been?
I think maybe 5, maybe, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure what year he died.
Okay. Now, you talked just a little bit about, I mean, growing up, both your parents were teachers in Ballydesmond.
They were, yes.
Well, your
they
father
taught
was-
everybody but me.
Oh, really? What was that? What happened there?
Because at one time the boys were in one school and the girls were in another school. And then when they mixed the boys up, mixed the boys and girls together, I was gone past my mother's classes,
Okay.
fortunately.
Fortunately, you
Yes,
say.
because she was tough on, I understand, on her own children she was tough. But of course she wanted them to learn, that's why.
Right.
So.
And
I remember the day Joan was born. The boys were in one school that time and the girls were right next door. And I was going in from lunch and Debbie was going in ahead of me and he said, "You have a new sister." And I ran home to see her. Because the nurse was coming, and she'd say, with her little black bag, and she said, "I'm going to bring you a sister." And of course I thought it was coming in the bag any day. So sister did come. And I remember that I went home, and she and Brendan must be very close in age, because when one would cry, the second one would cry. They both cry together.
I know that feeling. So what was it like then growing up as second oldest? I mean, did you have more responsibility with the younger siblings?
I had a disadvantage actually, because I was the oldest girl. The boys were allowed to do anything they wanted. I was not allowed. I was not allowed outside the gate.
Okay.
You know,
Of the interest?
they could do whatever they want, go wherever they wanted.
Right.
Not me. I've been told, I don't remember it, that when I was a baby, my father really used to pamper me, cover me from the sun, and My Auntie Kitty used to tell me that because he didn't have a sister, of course.
Yeah.
And here I was, the first girl in the Dillon family. You know, all the brothers, none of them had a girl at that point.
Right.
So, and what was interesting is when I was born, I had a lot of birthmarks on my face. And it was very unusual when you think back then, that I had all of those skin grafted. And only one of them never completely healed. And it's a little one right here.
Right.
But I have scars in my head and I have scars here
Yeah.
where I guess they took. I don't know who did it.
At an early age it was done, was it?
Yeah, it was done when I was very
Wow.
young. It's very interesting because when I was in the bank, this doctor used to come in all the time and, you know, chat with me, and she could see the scars and she said, "Did you have a facelift?" I said, "No." And I told her the story and she said it must have been a British doctor that did it because they had some very good doctors back then.
Right.
Don't know who did it or where they did it,
Okay.
but it was done.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So just back to growing up then with the others. How did you find that? I mean,
Well,
As
Bernie
I
was
say-
the boss of the three of us.
was he?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he was in charge. The three of us, I said. Debbie was never with us, and
Right.
neither were Joan and Brendan.
Okay.
So the three of us were together.
Bernie described himself as a hard worker.
He was a very hard worker,
Right.
definitely, no question. Himself and Pat used to go. He was very methodical, always.
Okay.
They used to go to the bog, I guess, and divide it up. I never saw it. I never went to the bog. I never did anything. All I did was read every chance I got.
Right.
That's all I did.
Were there must have been some chores to be doing though, were there?
Well, see, when we no longer had live-in help, and we were the instigators of that because we didn't like somebody we had, and we said if they got rid of this person that we'd do the work. But of course, we were sorry very quickly.
Yeah.
No, we used to, I usually had to make the beds. Nobody else had to do that.
Okay.
But then I would hop into the bed with my book and lay down and bang them up a little bit and pretend I was working, which I wasn't. Now Bernie and Patch didn't have to do that. But then we shared washing up the dishes. One would wash, one would dry, and one
Yeah.
would put them away.
Okay.
We did that. That was the three of us. Let's see, we were. Then my mother would sit around the table at night and play cards with us because, of course, we didn't have TV.
Right.
And my father would be at the top of the table reading his book because he read a lot. And I read every chance I got.
What did you read?
Anything I could get. My father would bring me books from the school library. And then in those days they had these books, they were like called the schoolgirls' library books. 2 of them a month would come out, and when my father would go to Tralee to cash his check, he'd bring me 2. There'd be 2 new ones every month.
Very good.
And whenever he got paid, he always gave all of us money, because he only got paid once a month.
Yeah.
And every Saturday we got a penny. Penny bought a lot back then. And for your birthday, if you were 10, you'd get 10 pennies.
Right.
And what else? My mother would sit on the stairs and sing songs with us. She'd get out the songbook and we'd all sing songs.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember Bernie being able to sing. I don't think he could sing, but Patch could sing and I could sing.
Right.
But Bernie wasn't noted for singing.
Would you go visiting other houses, or would people come to visit you and you'd have songs
No,
or
the
otherwise?
only ones that came to visit us was my aunts. They would come in after Mass on Sunday.
Right.
They were both married to farmers. And they might bring something. They might bring butter, or they might bring... and at Christmas, of course, they always brought you a goose or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember it that much. But I would say we had a very good childhood. I know in school, they were very poor, a lot of people. They were really, most people didn't have shoes.
Yeah.
I was dying to go without shoes, and I was never allowed to go barefoot. And they would walk long distance to school.
Yeah.
Some of them would be walking a couple of miles every day to school. We were just up the road. I would go into my mother for lunch because, see, the girls' lunch was a different time than the boys. And I would go in and have lunch with my mother. I can't think of anything else that was unusual about what it was like to grow up.
Bernie was saying how your mother spent time, was it in the next village or a bit away, a few nights away, 3 nights a week teaching?
Oh yes, later on. Later on, we were older then. It must have been that there was not enough students for all the teachers, and she went, and it was back near Killarney where she went, and she took Joan and Brendan with her.
Right.
And we stayed home. And she would come home midweek, and she would come home for the weekend. My father would go get her.
Right.
And he would take her there for her to keep her job.
So did that have much of, was that anything
No,
unusual?
it
You're
didn't,
fine
no.
with that?
Didn't think anything of it.
Okay. And then, how would you describe yourself of the siblings in terms of if
I'm a bit of a loner.
you like to spend time on your own? Was that because of the age you were with such a big gap with Joan and being the only girl in that?
Yeah, I didn't grow up with Joan. I mean, there's 6-year difference between me and Joan. That's a lot when you're young.
Yeah.
I mean, we're close, I would say now. But I'd say I'm probably closer to Bernie than to any of them. And probably to Patch.
Yeah.
I still have that little bond there. And of course, myself and Bernie, we were only 10 months apart.
Yeah.
Irish twins, as they say.
Yes.
The one thing I remember about growing up in Ireland, how dark it was and how cold it was.
Yeah.
I was always sick. I always had a cold. I always had a cough. You know, so damp and so everything. That is the thing that sticks out in my mind the most. How dark it got at night. You couldn't even see your hand. I don't miss that at all.
And because things would have been different, obviously, heating or otherwise, or
Even when they got central heating, it just didn't help that much. The houses weren't built really
yeah.
to because the walls would be so damp, probably.
Bernie, I remember him describing blowing his breath in the morning, seeing
the cold. You didn't linger when you got out of bed.
Yeah.
You got dressed quick.
Right.
Really cold. That sticks out in my head more so than anything. The terrible cold and the darkness.
Yeah.
2 things I don't like.
Right. Interesting. Okay. And what would you do then, I suppose, for entertainment or otherwise? Like you said, reading was one
That
thing,
was
or
my
playing
entertainment.
cards.
Yeah, that was it.
Was there anything else you did as a family? Like maybe, was there trips? Did you have holidays and stuff like that?
We went to Ballybunion every summer. We'd go there almost every Sunday, and we'd visit my father's family. I mean, we liked doing that. I mean, I didn't ever go into the water there. It was too cold.
I was driving in a car, was it?
Yes, we'd drive in the car. And
Did many people have cars around that time?
well, I remember when private cars were off the road. I don't know what year that was. What I remember is when...
During the war, was it?
What I remember was the day we were able to take the car out. Because my father took us out for a drive in the car.
Yeah.
We always had a car, it's just, I don't know, is it you couldn't get gas for it or why? But there weren't any private cars on the road.
Right.
And my father used to go to school by bicycle. And because he was a couple of miles away where he had to go to school. But then, of course, the car. I remember it was a green car. I don't remember too much about it. I'm having a ride, but then that's the car that would take us back to Ballybunion.
Okay. In terms of then, I guess, knowing what this video is for, right, it's for future generation stuff, just describing maybe the differences, maybe be it food or otherwise. I mean, we talked a little bit about heating or lack of, wasn't TV and stuff like that. Maybe describe some of the food you would have had around that time.
Basic food. We all sat around the table in the order of our age.
Yeah.
Probably heard that already. Did you?
No.
No. My father was at the top. Then you just came right around the table while you sat in the same place. We always had our meals at a certain time. The table was always properly set.
Right.
With knives, forks, plates, everything. And all the meals were at a set time. And we had basic food. If you were having meat, they would go to the butcher that day to buy the meat because there wasn't any refrigeration.
Yeah.
I don't remember too much what we ate. I know I didn't eat anything. I was someone who never ate.
Right.
All I ate, it seemed, was bread. I didn't eat anything. Growing up, I was terrible. Now, Burnley had a very good appetite, I always remember. I don't remember too much about the meals.
Yeah.
Because they weren't important to me.
Right. But you used to have meals together.
Oh yeah, we all ate together.
Times, yeah.
There was set times and we all sat at the table together. And we sat there till everybody was finished. You don't have one getting up before when you're done.
Right.
Everybody stayed there till the end.
So describe just the table then of the Dillons at the time. Would it have been a noisy table or a kind of an ordered table, or how would you kind of converse at dinner time?
I can't remember that much. I know there'd be conversation, but I don't remember it too much.
Right.
Don't remember. There would be conversation. I can't remember what it was about though.
Okay. What about your time in school then? Do you want to talk a little bit about just...
School was fine.
I mean, you talked a bit about kids coming with no shoes and things like that. And
my class was very small. Three boys and 3 girls.
oh, wow.
Couldn't be smaller than that.
From what, all the way up?
Yeah, all the
Wow.
way up. And in those days, there'd be like 3 or 4 classes in a room. Wouldn't be just one. Of course,
Okay.
there wouldn't be a lot of students.
Yeah.
School, I don't think I ever learned anything in national school. I don't think I ever learned one thing. Let me rephrase that. I think we did learn math. Because the teacher we had that, I think that was his specialty.
Yeah. When you say you didn't learn, is because you learned from your parents or others or what?
Well, I don't think they covered anything. I don't remember that much about geography or history or anything like that.
Okay.
But I remember missing almost a whole year of school one time. Like about the 2nd grade. I missed almost the whole school. I don't quite know what was wrong with me. There was something wrong with me. So I more or less skipped 2nd grade completely.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't remember that much about school.
Okay.
It wasn't, didn't leave a lasting impression.
That'd be primary school. What about
Yeah.
secondary school?
Well, that was just up the road. I was there for a few years and we were like jammed in like sardines in one room. It was alright again. I wasn't anyone who really liked school.
Yeah.
I would prefer not to be in school. And then I went away to boarding school. That was alright too.
Yeah.
But I couldn't wait to finish and get out of there.
To do what?
I didn't know what to do what. But I guess I did okay. I was lucky. I think I was lucky.
Okay. So do you want to describe then, maybe, I mean, beyond school, just what happened in your life then afterwards?
Well, when I came here first, when I came to the United States first, I came to people, very distant relatives, and they really didn't want me. they refused to sponsor their own niece, but they sponsored me
Right.
because of my mother. But then they wouldn't let me get a regular job. They said I had to go in and work with a family, like as a nanny or whatever.
Okay.
So fine with me. I thought that's okay until I get to know my way around. So I stayed with this one particular family. Maybe I was there a year, maybe. I couldn't wait to get away. Very difficult lady. You had to account for every minute. If she was out, you'd have to account for every minute what she did. But it was good that
Yeah.
I started there, because then I just fell into a really nice job. I was working for a Red Sox player,
Oh, wow.
Jimmy Pearsall. He was very famous at the time. I didn't have a clue who he was. Didn't have a clue. They made a movie about his life called Fear Strikes Out. And I
Oh.
really liked living with them. I had a wonderful time with them.
As a nanny, was it?
Yeah, I was one of the family there.
Great.
It was wonderful. I really did almost nothing there. They were wonderful, wonderful people. And then I went home and I stayed home. I stayed home about a year. I went to London. I got a job in London and decided not to take it. And then I came back to the US. And then I started working at the bank. And then worked my way up along the line. And I was very lucky I had bosses who liked me.
Right.
But I was a good worker.
Yeah.
And the last one I had, he really appreciated people who had a good work ethic,
Right.
which I had, and I worked there. I was very happy doing that.
And what motivated you to come initially to the US and then back a second time?
Well, I just went home for a vacation, more or less, and
Okay.
ending up staying longer because the person I was with, she was slow coming back, so we thought we'd come back together. And we came back in January on this ocean liner through some horrendous weather. Horrendous. We were sitting on one of the inside decks, and the ship tilted completely this way. And I was thrown completely across the deck.
Wow.
And I more or less swung my back to kind of save myself, and as I was picking myself up, it tilted completely up again the other way. And there were some young fellows sitting across from us, and they rolled right down the stairs, but you see, I had a wall that saved me. I was at the side that had the wall. And that weather was very, very bad. A couple of people had broken legs, and at least we weren't out on the main deck. We would have gone overboard.
Right.
But I was young at the time and it didn't faze me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it now. When you're young, you think nothing of it.
So you've obviously been in the US, I guess, most of your life now,
I
right?
have. You see, in Ireland, I don't remember that much about it. And Ireland is very changed from when I lived there. And I was so young when I left.
Hmm.
You know.
And had you ever any desire to go back? I mean, no, obviously Bernie ended up going back.
Yeah, Bernie went back, yes. No, I had no desire to go. I wouldn't fit in there now. I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, I've been gone too long, and my friends are here, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though when you get to this stage in your life, you know, you're in different areas, so you don't always, you're in touch with everybody, but you're not. When your children are little, you see everybody all the time. When your children grow up, you don't. That's how life is.
Yeah.
And you'll see that. And of course now we're perfectly content to do nothing,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, life is good. We're very lucky, you know, and then we're fortunate we were able to go to Spain
Yeah.
for that couple of months. And if Bernie wasn't there, we probably wouldn't go. We always say that.
Yeah.
That if he wasn't there, we wouldn't go.
Yeah.
We do something else. Because we have a lot of friends who go to Florida, and they're always saying, oh, come to Florida,
Yeah,
come to
yeah.
Florida. But no.
That's nice. But it's interesting that there's three of you that are based here in the States.
Yes, it is, but yet we're far apart.
Yeah.
Well, I was the first one to come, and then Bernie came, and then Joan came. Well, Brendan had a hard time getting in here. He had to go to the Bahamas, which he'll be able to explain all of that to you. And of course, Joan lived in Boston when she came first. I never thought Joan would stay, but she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll be chatting to them
Yes.
soon enough, all
Oh,
right.
Brendan will have plenty to say.
Well, yes, he will, won't he? Looking forward to
Hopefully
that.
my little report is going to be very small.
Well, what I'll probably do, I mean, I'll mix it up a bit, but I just wanted to go back a little bit again then, just maybe to your parents, and I guess any thoughts you had on them, in particular their characteristics or otherwise, and any traits you can attribute either to your siblings or to yourself from them.
Well, my mother was a great talker. I think that's why we're the way we are. So we're not talkers, because my mother is a big talker.
Right.
And I don't think anyone in our family is a big talker. Maybe Brendan, maybe. My father was quiet, silent type. But all he had to do was say, "You're getting noisy," and we'd stop. And my mother could say it 50 times and we wouldn't stop. You know? if we were fighting, playing cards,
Yeah.
which is always what would happen. You know, there was really nothing else you could play indoors.
Right.
Nothing.
So being teachers, was the discipline, were they quite disciplined then in terms of back in the home, or?
Well, you see, they probably would have been with the boys because they would be teaching them, whereas with me, they wouldn't know what I was doing.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't have to, I could be saying anything and they wouldn't know. I'd always be reading a book, always. And I'm still doing that.
Sounds like you were under the radar of attention, were you?
Yes, I was, yes.
Okay.
I was under the radar, that's right. I don't know. Yeah, but my father was very kind man. And he was a loner, definitely. I know I'm definitely a loner, but I think that's probably why I'm shy. And Bernie is shy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand Bernie. But Bernie is a very kind person. I think the world of Bernie. And the Dillons, I think, are an odd family. They're very different.
Yeah.
Debbie was always in competition with Bernie, always.
Right.
He wanted to be better than Bernie, and that wasn't always easy. Nobody was in competition with me, which was fine. You know, I just like to do my own thing, you know.
Right. And what about them, Brendan and Patch and Joan? Where do they fit in the mix?
Well, Patch was always a happy-go-lucky. You know, in national school, Patch had perfect attendance. Only 2 people in the school had perfect attendance for all the years there, and he was one.
Wow.
One boy and one girl. That's amazing.
Isn't it? Yeah. Never
when you
got
think of
sick.
it. Never missed a day. Patch was always kind of happy. Bernie was always serious. Brendan and Joan, I couldn't say anything about them because I don't really know. They were young when I left.
What age did you leave?
I left when I was 18.
Wow.
Very young. They didn't want to let me go. But the only way I got to come here was when my grandfather was dying. He said to my father, "Let her go." And that's how I got to go.
Right.
Because of course it was a big thing. But I was very fortunate. When I came, I was given enough money that I could come home. Whereas most people who came here during that particular era, they had to come here and they had to send money home
Yeah.
to try to bring the next person.
Yeah.
Those are very different times. And you know, people didn't make a lot of money back then, but of course things didn't cost as much either.
Yeah. Things were simpler in a lot of respects, right?
Yes. But I'd say on the whole we had a happy childhood. We always had to be in before dark because the rosary was said. We had to kneel down and say the rosary and each
Okay.
take our turn
Right.
saying a round of it.
Were your parents religious?
My mother was always praying. I will say though, my father, every morning when he got up, he knelt beside the bed and said morning prayers. And he said prayers before he got into bed. And his parents were very nice. All his brothers, they were all, of course we didn't see them as much as we'd see because on my mother's side, my uncle just lived down the village.
Right.
The only one that was far away was my Uncle Peter. And I got to know him pretty well.
Okay. And what about kids on that side then?
Of course, my Uncle Eddie in the village, he only had one son who would be probably maybe Joan and Brendan's age, maybe. But see, my other first cousins, they lived on the farm, they lived further up. You might see them on Sunday. And they probably wouldn't come near you because my father would be teaching them. So they'd stay away.
Yeah.
In those days there was great respect for the teacher, not like now.
Yeah, that's true.
Teacher is nothing now.
Yeah, well, it was a position of kind of high esteem, as you say.
Oh, it was.
Back then. And did that affect you, I mean, as a family or personally? Do you think, I mean, people...
We didn't know. We
You didn't
weren't
know.
aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can't tell you. What else did Bernie talk about? Maybe to give me a hint about some stuff.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be leading you with questions.
Yes, you are.
I
I
mean-
can't think.
Well, we covered a lot of it in terms of talking about the family, the parents, growing up in Ballydesmond, you know, just really the difference between back then and now, you know, school.
Oh, it's different now. Yeah.
I talked a bit about with him being in the States and things like that, and so they were.
Well, he wasn't here very long. He was probably here about 5 years, was it, or 6 years?
Yeah.
About
Like
that,
that, yeah.
yeah. I know. Maura and Patrick are born here. Patrick was a baby
That's
when
right.
they left. Yeah.
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 Well, it was interesting, I guess, that they went back, but
Yeah. I think that was due to your mother.
I sounded like it, yeah.
Yeah, I think she's the one that really wanted to go back. She was never happy here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fine. I had no desire to go back. I never wanted to go back. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just didn't. And I thought Brendan would go back because he had worked in Ireland. Well, I think maybe when he met Marianne in the Bahamas, that might have made the change.
But it's interesting that nobody's I guess there was no farm really to keep going, but
No.
there's no ties to Ballydesmond really then now, is there?
I
Any ties?
understand the house is in ferocious condition.
Yeah, I need to get down there and
Take some pictures of
yeah.
the weeds. I don't know, was it, maybe your father told me about how bad it was. Somebody told me about how the windows at the back are broken.
yeah.
And I have only been in there, I think, once since we left when those people were living there.
Right.
And it was interesting. A lot of the stuff that was there when we lived there was still there. You know, like the curtains on the windows, the table.
Yeah.
And it was like just walking back in, except it didn't look as good.
And when did the house pass ownership then?
It would be after my mother died, which was, did she die in 76?
6?
Yeah. But, yeah. Our life was just very ordinary, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, they'd have movies that would come to town once in a while. I mean, they were like Laurel and Hardy or whatever you call it, that type of style. And of course we'd want to go to those, we'd go if we could. But I never was able to go to the dances or anything before I came here. I was always dying to go to the dance down the village. I was never allowed to go there.
Yeah. But you had to be over 18, was it? Or
Oh
just...
no, you could go, it's just I wasn't allowed to go. Whereas the boys could go, but I couldn't go.
Oh, right. They were extra protective of...
Oh yeah, let's see, the
Girls.
oldest girl, and then the youngest girl gets away with murder. But she doesn't think so. No, Joan really did, I think, get away with murder.
Right.
She was the youngest.
Yeah.
Anything she said was funny, it wasn't probably.
I can identify with that being the youngest, I suppose. But...
Yeah, you got away with murder, yeah. Well, by then, you know, they're tired.
Exactly. And I can identify a bit with that, all right.
No.
It's having its effect already.
Yeah.
Um,
The other thing that we used to do was at Christmas, this was a tradition, and Bernard may have addressed this already, about the lighting of the candle.
no.
There was a large candle that was kept in the middle of the table,
Right.
the dining table, I guess. That would be lit first, and of course we had live candles in all the windows. And a few prayers were said, and then all those candles would be lit, and they'd be put on tables in front of the window so you could see them. And then I would go with my mother and we'd walk up back the village and look at all the lights, the windows. That was a tradition,
Yeah.
Christmas one. And of course we always had a goose and we always had plum pudding, I guess.
Right.
It would be a big celebration, the Christmas dinner,
Okay.
with the stuffing and everything. And of course Santa Claus, you put your stocking at the bottom of the bed. And that's how you got your stuff. And you didn't have the stocking you bought in the store, you
Yeah.
had one of your own stocking. And you never really got anything,
Yeah.
because people didn't get stuff.
That's
I
right.
remember there was one year ever, I got everything I asked for. And it was a jump rope, it was a doll, and it was a box of hankies. Think of how simple life was.
Yeah.
Very simple. And we used to have greyhounds, I'm sure Bernie told you about the
Yeah.
greyhounds. Oh my God, we're scared to death of those things.
Why?
They'd jump up on you.
Right.
You know, they have these spindly legs with the claws. You'll be coming home from school and you'll be afraid to go in the gate because they'd be running around. Bernie used to walk them. That was his job in the morning.
Yeah.
But we had one very good one, I guess. It would have been the same age as Joan. He won a lot of things. His name was Hilarity, I remember it. But his name at home was something else, was Rose or something. But greyhounds are very temperamental. Very, very temperamental. Every now and then they'd get a fit and they'd take off through the countryside.
Yeah.
And of course people didn't have phones in those days. And what my father would do is he'd put an ad in the paper and he'd always get the dog back. They might be miles and miles away because someone, of course, knew, and they just watched the paper
Yeah.
and he'd
That's
get the dog back. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And it's how different things were as well. The
Oh.
honesty, I guess, as well as
Oh,
the
yes,
simplicity
yes.
of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Life was very simple.
Hmm.
You didn't walk into a store to buy anything, clothing. It was all made. A dressmaker
Wow.
would measure you. If it was time to get a new dress, you went to the dressmaker, you had your fabric, and the dress was made, or the coat was made, or anything. And they even had cobblers, shoemakers in Ballydesmond. Some men would get shoes made there. But also there was a tailor to make suits for the men. But I remember my father, he was not an extravagant man. By extravagant man was he didn't believe in possessions. Maybe once a year he'd get a brand new hat, and it would be a good quality hat.
Yeah.
Or whenever he bought a suit or a jacket, it would be like super quality, the best that money could buy. but he didn't have a lot. He didn't believe in having a lot. Like if he had a pen, one pen was sufficient. He'd have a good pen. He'd have a Parker or whatever it is. If he had a watch, it would be a good one. But he wouldn't have 5 or 6 of anything.
Right.
And he didn't believe in that. Now my mother, on the other hand, she'd like have 20 things. Not that you could buy 20 things in those days. But she wouldn't be as conscious of having the quality thing as my father would have been. That was the difference.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. But you didn't walk into a store and go through the racks and pick out what you wanted. It just wasn't done.
Yeah.
It wasn't there. Everything was in a box on top of a shelf that would have to be pulled out to look at. Different. And you went and you got one pair of shoes, and that lasted you. You get a pair of boots for the winter, and that's it. Then when they were worn out, you'd get another pair. But the good thing was I didn't have any hand-me-downs because I was the oldest. A lot of people have hand-me-downs from one to the other.
Yeah, I know my mother talked about that previously, but she was down the line. So
Yes, depending where you are on the totem pole. Yes.
yeah, I got a few hand-me-downs, I think, myself. But
Yeah, I know. But I don't remember getting much. I remember once getting a doll from Santa Claus, and I put it on the front steps. The next thing I saw, the greyhound ripping into shreds. It was in shreds the day after I got it. But I was careless, I left it there. That was life in Ballydesmond. It was a good life.
yeah,
But I could never go through that cold and that dark again. To this day, I don't like dark. I have a light at night.
right.
And even when I used to go home, when I'd be here and I'd go back home, everyone knew when I was home because there'd be a light. Not necessarily in the room, but right outside it.
Right.
That black, that darkness.
So by candle, was it? What age
No.
did it switch over from? Would you remember
I was
candle
in
light?
high school or secondary school. I was away at school, I think, when I was in Mountmillick, when they got electricity.
Okay, but before that, was it
Gas lamps,
gas lamps?
which was like electricity because it was in the ceiling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was in the
Oh,
ceiling.
it wasn't something you had to carry around with you?
No, it was in the ceiling. I see a lot of the old houses here in the US, a lot of them are converted gas lights. Like if you'd see like a round thing like that where that light is, wouldn't be in this house because the whole house isn't old enough. But a lot of times you might see that silver thing might be that thick because there was like a gas pipe under there and they could only cut it so much. Where they had gas lights in the ceilings here in the US too.
It must have been quite dangerous though, was it?
Not really. There was a knack to it. It's like everything else.
Yeah.
It's like working with those Primus stoves that they had. We had one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was an art to just. The gas light was an easy thing. You had to put a match to it and know when to pull the thing to get it to light.
Yeah.
It was like a mantle, they called that thing. If you touched it with, it looked like a little mini globe, but if you touched it, it would disintegrate.
Okay.
So we had that. I mean, I guess.
So that's from when you were young, you remember
Yeah,
that?
I guess we were
never
considered-
carrying around.
We were well off if we had one of those because we had them all over the house.
Wow, okay.
Because most people would have the oil lamp
Yeah.
and you'd be carrying that around, or the candle.
Mm.
Well, we didn't have it in the bedroom, of course.
Yeah.
We would have to have the candle in the bedroom. That was the other thing. There was no lights upstairs. At one time, all our bedrooms upstairs had fireplaces, and they were all taken out. Maybe because of the cold. I don't know
Right.
why they were. I think it would have been better if they left them because you could put a fire there to heat up the room.
Yeah.
Because the rooms are small.
A lot of older houses are like that. I know.
Yeah.
Our house in Marino, built in the 40s, it has fireplace in a couple of the rooms. Yeah.
Yeah. Our house in Ballydesmond would have been built around 1931 or something like that. But I guess the gravel and stuff they had at that time was just junk, it really was.
Yeah,
So
they didn't have insulation, really, did they?
I keep going back to the cold and the dark. Those are the two things. You couldn't warm up any place,
Yeah.
no matter what you had on.
And what about entertainment now? I know you talked about kind of reading and playing cards or whatever, but you know, even going out or music, you talked about the cinema coming to town as well. And
That would be it. Or if it,
was there any music, like, did you listen to the radio or?
oh yeah, you'd listen to the radio to the top 40 or the top something in Luxembourg, I think.
Right.
You know, something. We didn't listen to the radio that much though. We really didn't, I guess, because there was nothing. There was one radio for the whole house. And there could be sports on that. You know, the football would be on it, everything would be on it. So
Yeah.
all that would have priority. You wouldn't be able to play around with it and say, could I watch this station and that station?
You were down the pecking order, Vin.
Yes. What I do remember though is, of course, when you think of it, there are ways to do everything, how simple life was back then. Like about the greyhound missing, for instance, that's one. Another thing is when the football would be on, okay? What my father would do is he had a big sheet of paper. He would draw out the field and who was supposed to be where. So he had a visual, even though he didn't have the TV. He had the visual on the paper.
Sure.
And when they'd be saying the names and stuff and who was doing this and that, you'd hear all the names and so and so and so and so. And it's funny, a name sticks out in my head, Knocky Cronin. I guess he played, I don't know, is it hurling or football for Cork.
Right.
Now this is when I was little and that name hit in my head. But you know, I actually met him.
Yeah.
I met him because he was somehow related to Jim's family. And I met him. And of course I knew right away who he was. But that was weird to think that that would stick out in my mind from like when I was young, even though I think it was the name. I thought it was a weird name, Knocky Cronin. And they were all, he must have been really good because they would say his name over and over and over again, so he had to be really good. But I know he played for the Cork team. He's still alive. He lives in, where the heck is it? He lives not in Dunman Way, in West Cork he lives.
Right.
I forget where he lives. But that was like improvising again when you didn't have the visual. I remember going to a football game once in Killarney and never saw so many people in my life. You know, the streets were packed and packed and packed. I must have been young when I went. Because really, there was no entertainment. You had to make your own entertainment.
And would you have gone into Killarney much? Because that would have been much
Never.
bigger. Never?
Never. How would we go?
But sure, how far? It's only what? Is there no buses or anything that...
Not at all.
No?
Not at all. That was the 50s, John. There was nothing. Nothing. You didn't go anywhere unless your parents took you. We didn't even have a bicycle to go anywhere. We didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, if your parents didn't take you, you didn't go. And I certainly wouldn't be let go anywhere.
Right.
But Bernie and all of them, they could go play football and play everything, but not me. I was grounded.
Very good.
Maybe some of the rest of the family will have a different slant to all of that.
Did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
No, I guess that's it.
That's good, kind of track down memory lane for you.
I know. I mean, like I said, life was good. I think it was good. I mean, we didn't know what we were missing. We really didn't. We didn't know anything. I mean, locals considered us well off. We didn't think we were well off. We thought we were just like everybody else. We were never aware that we had anything more than anybody. But I guess we did. But we were never aware of it.
Yeah.
That image was never projected anyplace. We were just like everybody else.
Right.
The thing is, you didn't hang around with anybody after school. You made your own fun at home. You played within the family.
Right.
Now, we would love to go down the village, but we weren't allowed down.
And why is that?
Well, probably thought that maybe it wasn't a good element that was down there or something. Who knows what they thought? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe being teachers, maybe they thought we shouldn't be hanging around with some of those. You know, we didn't know anything about who they were or their background
Yeah.
or anything. Maybe they were real nice people, we don't know.
You didn't feel any extra pressure to kind of to be, I don't know, pressure to be, to conform in school or otherwise because your parents
No,
were teachers?
I was always treated very well in school, always, and I really do think that's why. I was never singled out, and they were pretty mean to some kids.
Yeah.
But I think that leaves more of a mark on the person witnessing it than the person it actually happened to. Because I can think of 2 incidents. This boy that was in my class, he's dead now actually. I can remember how the teacher treated him so abominably. He would slap him around the room and everything. It was really awful. And one time when I was back in Ireland, it was right the time my mother died, after she died. He was home and he came in to see me. And I said to him, all I can remember is how terrible you were treated in school. He had no memory of it.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I witnessed it and I thought it was awful. And I remember another incident that I think was even more humiliating. Oh, in those days they were terrible. We were doing sewing and we were making some kind of a jacket or some kind of, I don't know what we were making. But anyway, the teacher asked this particular girl to come up to the front of the class and she was to try it on. Now I'm sitting in the desk. I know this girl does not want to take off whatever it is she has, like the shirt like this. I know, I'm sitting there and I know she doesn't want to take it off and her face is so red. And she made her take it off and she had absolute rags on underneath. It was so humiliating. I never forgot it. She probably doesn't remember it, but I do, because I witnessed it. I always think the person who witnesses it, it leaves more of an impression than the person it actually. I think they block it out.
Yeah.
I really do. But they were mean. They were mean in those days. They were mean if they thought you were poor. They didn't treat you well. And you know, it was nothing different in boarding school. They were the same. They never did anything to me. They always treated me very well because my parents were teachers.
Yeah.
But other people were treated so badly. It was really, I remember that. And it's interesting because my best friend, she's a nun, and I see her every time when I go home. She lives in Newcastle West. And there was one nun there. She was absolute tyrant, when I tell you. Every day you got up, you wondered what kind of a mood she was in. So one time when I saw her, she was telling me about this particular nun, how that she was so grateful if anyone spoke to her because she was so terrible. She was really bad.
Yeah.
She'd come around to the dorm and beat people with the cane. Oh, there's Marley and Bill and them coming back.
Yeah. So just before Marnie comes in, what as a mother then, what traits of your parents do you think you've passed on to Marnie? How did you behave as a mother to Marnie?
Well, I tend to fly off the handle easily. I think if I get stressed like all mothers.
Who's that like? Is that like your mother? Or?
Like my mother. And on the other hand then, I'm like my father because I never stop reading. I devour books. And I think I'm a kind, giving person. It's easier for me to give than receive. I don't like to receive, I like to give. And both my parents were givers, my mother especially, she was a very big giver. When kids were so poor they didn't have, money for communion dresses or whatever, she would make them for them. She would provide them, give them communion dresses so that they would make them. And a lot of them came back in later life to thank her.
Oh, that's very nice. Will we finish on that? No.
Yeah, you can't come up yet, Billy.
Can we go back downstairs?
Yeah, about 15 minutes, 10 minutes. No, 10 minutes and then we're done. What she used to do. And there was a young fellow, he was, I don't know, he was mentally challenged. I don't really remember what exactly was wrong with him.
Right.
My mother had him the entire national school. The other teachers wouldn't take him. She had him. And when I would go in for lunch, she'd be asking everyone, what are you wearing for Holy Communion? He'd say, oh, I'm wearing a white dress and I'm going to marry Sheila. He was so cute. And years later, his mother came back and thanked my mother for taking him.
Wow.
Gave him kind of a normal life. She was very kind, but she could cut your legs off at the same time. So I guess that's it.
Thanks very much.
I guess we're done.